In this episode of The Landscape, I got a chance to speak to my good friend Adriana Villela, who is an absolute cloud native rock star doing amazing things at Dynatrace, as well as being an OpenTelemetry maintainer. Adriana always has something new to share and does it with tons of energy that we all admire. This podcast is brought to you by OVH Cloud, the global cloud provider delivering industry-leading performance and cost-effective solutions. From managed Kubernetes to private registries, OVH Cloud has the cloud-native tools you need. OVH Cloud, the world needs different. Now, let's take a look at the episode. So, who are you? What's your job title? And where do you work?
Okay, so my name is Adriana Villela. I am a principal developer advocate at Dynatrace. Dynatrace, it has multiple hats, but I think I know Dynatrace from my foray into observability. So they do have an observability platform, but they also do platform engineering work. And also, Dynatrace is in the open source space, which maybe not a lot of folks knew about. They actually have I think they were the originators of a CNCF project called Captain, actually. So
Very good. Yeah, we had Andreas Grabner on the program talking about that.
awesome.
Great chat with Andy. Now, what project are you maintaining?
So I'm one of the maintainers of OpenTelemetry and specifically of the OTel End User SIG. And we actually just got our SIG status, I want to say earlier this year. We used to be a working group.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And with that in mind, for people that don't know, what does that mean?
So specifically what the OTel End User SIG does, so what we do is we bring together end users of OpenTelemetry, so the folks out on the field who are using OpenTelemetry. So it allows us to make them aware of each other. It allows us to share end user stories and allows us to collect feedback from the end user so that we can pass it on to the other maintainers of OpenTelemetry. So one of the things that we started doing this year, for example, is it started when the OTel Collector SIG approached us and said, hey, can your SIG run a survey, because we want to find out from the OTel community what are the things that they want to see from the OTel Collector to help drive the roadmap for the collector. So we collaborated with them on running a survey, and then we shared the survey findings through a blog post on the OTel blog. We had a number of end users actually come participate as part of a live panel with the OTel Collector maintainers to talk about their experiences with the collector. And then we shared those findings from all of that with the OTel Collector maintainers. So now they'll be able to use that information to define and drive their roadmap. And so we've done that with a couple of other areas as well. So currently we have one going with the communication SIG. So for anyone who uses the OTel docs, we have a survey that's running up until the 15th of November. It's currently open. So if you've used the OTel docs, love them or hate them, we want to hear how you use them so that we can help improve them.
Now, you've been a maintainer for how long?
I guess maintainer status, probably just a few months, I would say. I want to say at least 6 months at this point.
And what was that process like when you decided, you know what, I'm going to make the jump. I want to become a maintainer?
So for us, it was this organic thing. I joined the OTel End User SIG at the time, the working group, because I think one of the people who started the working group had left. She had left the OTel space. So they were looking for people to help out with the working group. So that's how I became involved. And then when our working group got SIG status, there were a few of us who were core contributors to OpenTelemetry. So it became, or to the SIG, I should say. So it just became this sort of organic thing where oh yeah, you guys are always contributing, so we should make you maintainers. So there are 3 of us who are maintainers, and we have a few additional folks who are approvers and come to our meetings on a regular basis.
Now, what problems does OTel solve?
So OpenTelemetry provides you this universal framework for instrumenting your code. So basically, putting information into your code to make it more observable. And before OpenTelemetry came about, there was kind of this mishmash of stuff where vendors did their own thing. There were a couple of other attempts to making to standardizing on instrumentation. So there was the Open Census project, which was, I believe it was like part of Google open source. And then there was also the Open Tracing project, which was a CNCF project. And and folks from both projects came together and said, you know what, we need a single unified standard. And that became OpenTelemetry, which I think became a thing in 2019.
2019.
I know. It feels like yesterday, honestly. I can't believe it's like 5 years ago. It's wild.
Now, what alternatives exist currently that users are choosing when left with the choice of OTel versus other options? And what makes OpenTelemetry different?
That's a good question. I guess folks can always use like vendor-specific tooling. I know there's a few vendors that don't necessarily subscribe to OpenTelemetry. I don't know. I don't know who they are specifically. Every so often we'll see stuff on socials where people would be like, "Oh, OTel, OTel has this and that shortcoming." And you know what? Like every open source project has its shortcomings, but as one of the Jurassi, who's one of the maintainers of the OTel collector, he mentioned like, instead of hearing all these folks like dissing OpenTelemetry, let's take those shortcomings and help make that a part of the solution. Like, oh, you have an issue with this? Okay, let's bring that to the maintainers and see if we can improve on that if that's something that bothers you. But I think the thing that I find really special about OpenTelemetry, and we have pretty good adoption, is because it is, first of all, an open standard. It's also been it's been embraced by all the major observability vendors out there. So there's really not this idea of like, oh, we're competing against each other. Like Reese Lee, who I speak with on a regular basis, like she's my regular co-speaker on all things OTel. We work at different organizations, and I don't even like bat an eyelash thinking, oh, she's a rival. She's not. Like, we're coworkers, like we're working towards the same goal. And I think that's what I love about OpenTelemetry, is that we're always working towards the same goal, which is standardization on instrumentation so that we can all benefit. Because at the end of the day, then as vendors, we don't have to care about like how that instrumentation is done. We get feedback from the community. We got folks from other companies doing that, working on that. So what we as vendors focus on then instead is what makes it different. How do we render your data, the same data? We're all ingesting the same data. How do we render the data in a way that's meaningful to you? So that's the main differentiator, is really what are you doing with that data to help you gain more insights into your application.
In terms of KubeCon, are there any big announcements from OTel that are coming out? Releases, updates, anything like that of that nature?
The one that I heard of, and I'm sure there are going to be more for Observability Day tomorrow, but I think they're announcing there's an OTel certification exam that's going to be coming out. So, yeah.
Very good. Fresh off the press?
Yeah. And I think, I don't know where we're at, but I know we've applied for graduation status. So I don't know if we're there yet, but I can at least say like that is our goal, is to become a graduated project of the CNCF.
And for people that don't know, what is involved in the process of becoming a graduated project? Is it a question of GitHub stars, end users? How do you define adoption? What are the necessary ingredients to reach that step?
Ooh, I can't say for sure because I haven't been involved in that area. So, yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. Another question. What's your favorite part about being a maintainer so far?
I think getting to meet all sorts of different folks in the community and really like getting to connect. I think it's the network, honestly. It's like this huge, awesome network that I have a bigger network in the last, like, I think 3 years of doing this than I've had in my, 20 plus career. In tech. So I think that's my favorite part.
If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Oh, you can find me on Blue Sky. That's where all the parties at nowadays. Yeah, my handle is Adriana M. Villela. So it's ADRIANAM, V as in Victor, ILLELA. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on both of those.
Well, Thank you very much for joining us today. Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers.